Hello, Keith Rucker here, VintageMachinery.org. Guys, I've got a little project here I'm going to start working on today. This is actually a clipper belt lacers for lacing flat belts. You use little metal clips, you put them in here, and it crimps them onto a flat belt for driving old antique machinery. And this is a nice floor model size. We've got a couple of these at the museum. Really like this particular version of the belt lacer. Clipper had several different versions. Some are small ones, you can put them in a vise, etc. But this little self-contained unit is really the Cadillac of them. And I was very fortunate recently. I was out of town on business. My wife called me up and said, one of the guys here in town that called me up, someone that she knew, and said, had some old piece of equipment, didn't know what it was, and wanted to know if you wanted it. I said, just bring it to the house and drop it off by the shop. And when I got home, this is what he brought. I said, wow, this is actually something I can use. So today, I want to go through and get this thing restored. Now, it is in pretty rusty, crusty shape right now. Looks like it's been out in the weather for a while, and I want to get it where we can actually use it. So let me zoom you in and kind of show you what we got, come up with a game plan on getting this thing back usable again. So these are pretty much just made out of pressed steel, or stamped out steel pieces or what have you. There's a couple things going on. You got the handle here. This actually pulls the jaws up here together. There's a little comb down the bottom that the belt lacing fits down into, and the handle over here kind of adjusts these in and out where you can tighten them up or really adjust them for the lacing that you're doing. There's a set of dies in here that press everything together. Right now, as you can see, it's number one, it's got there's some dirt down inside of this thing. It looks like it's been outside. I want to get that dirt out of there, and then we got to de-rust this thing. And I think instead of trying to take it apart and go through it piece by piece, the easiest thing for me to do is just soak the whole thing as an assembly in some Evap-O-Rust and see if we can clean it up that way. So here's my game plan. I'm going to take it outside. We're going to hit this thing with a pressure washer and try to at least get it cleaned, the dirt off of it clean, and then I've got a big tank of Evap-O-Rust. We'll let this thing soak overnight and see where we're at, see what we need to do from there. So I think that's going to be step 1 and 2. Let's get this thing out and get some pressure washing going on. Before I put this in the Evap-O-Rust, I think I want to take these wooden handles off, if I can get them off, and just to keep, they don't need to be soaking in there. So let me pull these off real quick. There we go. Well, here we go for the dunk. I have back here a tank that's got a bunch of Evap-O-Rust in there. I don't know, probably about 30 gallons or so. And we'll just drop it down in there. This Evap-O-Rust is safe stuff. It's not going to hurt your hands or anything like that, but we're just going to let it sit down there and soak probably overnight. I'm going to take that stand partially apart and I'm going to put it in there as well. We've been soaking here for a little over 24 hours. So, look at that beauty. Wow. It's just hard to believe that that was as rusty as it was when it went in there. And it is coming out. I mean, I don't even have to brush this thing. And I'm going to let that kind of sit right here on the corner for just a second. Let that drip dry for a minute. But wow. That's just unbelievable how clean that's coming out. This Evap-O-Rust is amazing stuff. I'll give you guys an update of where we are on the Clipper number 9 belt lacer. It's pretty much finished, and I apologize, I didn't show any of the process of finishing this thing up, but honestly, there wasn't a whole lot involved in it. Once I pulled it out of the Evapo-Rust, and by the way, I'm still just blown away and amazed at how clean this thing came right out of the Evapo-Rust. I didn't even have to use any Scotch-Brite or nothing on it. It just came out near about perfect. So I sprayed it down with some WD-40. Well, first I rinsed it off with water just to get all the Evapo-Rust off. I sprayed it down with WD-40, mostly just to displace the water out of it, to get the water out, and also to get a little bit of a lubrication. And from there, just put it back together, bolted it back to the stand, put the handles back on, and we sprayed a little bit of oil into some of the moving parts just to get it freed up. But it looks like it's in great shape. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to show you the process of using this, because I know a lot of you guys probably are not familiar with belt lacing, but to kind of show you how it's used and what it's used for. So let's go in here and let me show you a piece of belt. We'll get a piece of belt ready to lace up, and then we'll come use this machine to lace it. So we've got a piece of flat belting here. This is just a modern type of rubber coated canvas belting, which is pretty much what is available today. Back in the day, these would have been made out of leather mostly, although this type of belting material was available back in those earlier days as well. But first thing you want to do is get a nice square cut on this. Real important you have a square cut. Now you could just use a lot of times I just use a square with a razor blade and cut it. But this is another little tool that's made by Clipper specifically for cutting belts. A little guillotine action here, but you just come in. It's got a fence on the back, and you just push down on this, and it's got a knife in there, and it trims that off flush and square. And just to make sure I got a nice square cut on both sides, go ahead and hit the other side as well. There we go. So I just got a little short piece of belting here, and we're going to splice these together to make it an endless belt to put on a flat belt machine if you needed one this short. This is just a piece of scrap material. Zoom 3. Next step is to actually cut the metal lacing that we're going to use to do this, and it comes in strips like this one right here. This is probably one of the most aggravating parts of the whole process, is getting these things cut without getting them off that card. The card that they're on holds everything nice and where it needs to be to go into the machine, and if you get those little pieces out of that, it really gets aggravating, but you get it done. Biggest suggestion there, just use a really sharp knife. But cut those to basically the same width as the belt that you're going to lace. And then we're going to go install this in the machine and put the lacing on. Now over here on the lacing machine, I want to open it up so that the jaws are all the way up. I usually take my knee and kind of prop it up against this handle so it doesn't come flying back down on me and pinch me. But there's a little comb in the bottom of this that matches the spacings on this piece here. There's a little rod. This fits through a hole in the bottom, and basically you just feed it in there, catching all those hooks down in the bottom. Here we go, we're all the way through. Now you can leave this piece of paper in here and take it off after the fact, but I usually just go ahead and pull it out. And I like to look down through there and make sure I've got that little pin that I put in on every one of these captured. Sometimes it'll go, you won't get it hooked up underneath the bottom, and that'll mess you up. So I always visually look for that. Next step here is we'll take our belt, we'll put it down here just like such, and we will squeeze these together. Now if you notice the jaws are not all the way in, there's a handle here on the end that actually will close those jaws in. I usually do this in a couple of passes, so let me adjust that down. That's going to pull those in a little bit closer. You can see the jaws on the top are closing. Need to go some more. Just about got it there. All right, so we have pinched all those together. I'll pull our pin out. You can see we have the lacing on that side. we're going to make a matching set of lacing on the other side, and then we'll put the belt together. So let me go ahead and get the other side done. Start by opening these jaws back up. We'll get the second set lined up. Put our pin in just like before. Pull our paper out. I can see my pin all the way across, so we got good there. And put our belt down in here. And same process as before. Okay. There we go, second set of lacing done. Let's go put it together. So now we just want to put this lacing together, and we put a pin in there to hold it together. Now back in the old days they used a rawhide pin like this one here, and you can still use these. I actually like these. This one here, they make these for a couple different size lacing. This one's too big for this lacing, so I'm just going to use a metal pin, which when you buy lacing, modern lacing, you can still get this lacing. It comes with a metal pin that goes in there, and basically you just feed that in, you cut that off, and now you have a spliced belt. I'm going to leave that pin. I'm not going to cut it because I'm going to use it later for something else, but you can see how it goes. But that belt is now laced together. You got an endless belt. When you lace new belts together, very often they'll stretch, and you basically have to shorten them up to tighten the belt up. So you would just use your little machine over here, cut one side of the lacing off, put a new piece of lacing in there, and tighten up your belts by just shortening them as needed. Also, a lot of times in the wintertime, the belts will shrink, and summertime they'll expand. So if everything's running tight in the wintertime and the temperature gets warm inside the shop, and a lot of times in the springtime you have to go in there and you have to trim all your belts and tighten them up, just because the belts will expand with heat. So anyway, that's the process of lacing the belt. There you go, guys. That's going to be a wrap on this video. Just a quick little video on restoring a Clipper number 9 belt lacer. This Clipper company is still around, still in business. They still sell the belt lacing. They still sell machines. In fact, they sell one that's pretty much the same as this machine right now. They also make these in wider units, which is probably more common for today, and what they probably spend more time working on more than flat belts from driving machines nowadays is they use these same things for conveyor belts. They also use them to splice kind of a flat belt in an old round bale haler, hay baler, which makes the round bales that the hay rolls on. They have a big flat belt in them. You can use these for those. So they have a lot of purposes besides just using them for machine belts, but this is what they were probably originally designed for, and this is what I mostly use them for. Glad to have this in the shop. We've got a couple of these at the museum that I have used many times in the past, but now got this capability right here in the shop where I can lace belts together here without having to run to town and go borrow their lacer every time I need to do that. So anyway, that'll be a wrap, guys. As always, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll catch you on the next video.